Hello, folks, and welcome to the Real Men of Real Estate radio show here on KCAA. I'm your host today, Patrick Franz, the Note Mentor. And when you tune into my radio show, you're going to learn how to build passive monthly cash flow and create true financial freedom by investing in mortgage notes. You'll learn how to collect cash flow from real estate without owning the real estate. I mean, who really wants to deal with tenants, toilets, termites, or any other troubles associated with being a landlord? I plan to bring amazing experts on the show, just like the one I've got on with us today, so that you folks can get a well-rounded view of note investing and possibly change your financial future for the better. And you know what? Leave a better financial legacy as well. Financial intelligence is what I preach. Note investing is what I teach. And folks, you're in for a great show today. I have not in studio. This is the first show we're doing from our mobile studios or our at-home studios, which is really nice. But I have Kevin Shortle on the show today, and you're going to want to know who Kevin is if you want to know anything about note investing. I think he's, the last 2 or 3 years in a row, aside from 1 year skipped with COVID, I think Kevin's been named the #1 trainer in the whole note investing industry, for crying out loud. So we're all lucky here, folks, to have him on. He's a professional speaker. He has been for years, Kevin is. Best-selling author, podcaster, content producer. They call him the trainer's trainer, right? For crying out loud. I mean, I could go on, but and normally I don't bring Kevin on this early, but I do, because we're going to talk all about, folks, why note investing is cool, why everyone should own notes, the state of the market, and if note investing is going to be around for the next couple of years for you to get into it if you'd like to. All sorts of different subjects we're going to cover today. So you're going to want to listen in and not go anywhere. But I'm glad to bring Kevin Shortle on the show. Kevin, welcome. Introduce yourself to the listeners out there and tell them, who is this wonderful man, Kevin Shortle?
Thank you, Patrick. I do appreciate that. Yes, I've got started in the industry, and it's very in infancy. And I can tell you, over the years, it's gone through just amazing changes. The opportunities really have never been better. The ease in which you can get into the business and do the research is so different today. The technology and the rules, everything that kind of fell in line with it. And I think more and more that eventually all real estate investors seem to end up in notes. You know, they do. You were mentioning tenants and toilets and those sorts of things. I work with a lot of landlords that have found out, you know what, why don't I convert these folks from tenants into property owners and make myself the bank? Because after all, you don't call your bank when something is wrong with your house. You know, toilet's leaking, roof is leaking. You don't call the bank. So that's one move. But I've also seen the industry mature over that period of time to where investors from all backgrounds, whether they have real estate or not, because it used to be real estate centric, you know, that's who was attracted to this side of it. But now I'm seeing more and more people who are traditionally in the stock market and in investing in bonds and stocks and crypto, and now that are making notes a part of their portfolio. So it's been nice to have been along for the ride to see this go through, and all the changes and such. And I think it's really just an amazing time. And I think everybody should have it as a part of their portfolio.
I think so too. You know, and that's the reason why, Kevin, folks like us do these things, right? That's why I wanted to do a radio show about it. Not a lot of people know that mortgage note investing even exists, even though it's been going on for quite some time. But it kind of seems like real estate's little secret, you know, or something like that. And most people say, well, how come I haven't heard about it yet? So when I'm on here, Kevin, in the beginning of my show, of course, just before our first commercial break has to happen, I at least want to tell the listeners that have no clue what we're talking about, what note investing is. You know, what is a mortgage note? You know what I mean? Let's start simple for these folks, and we can get into the nitty gritty details here in a little bit. But a note is just a written promise to pay. It's a promissory note. Is that right?
Yeah, that's all it is. When you borrow money to buy, well, pretty much anything, you're going to sign a promissory note to pay it back. And the promissory note just outlines the terms. Who are the parties involved? How much are you borrowing? What's the interest rate? When do you pay? All those sorts of things are outlined in the note. And it is known as the note business, the note industry, that sort of thing. But the reality is we don't just buy notes. because a note is just somebody's guarantee they're going to pay. But unfortunately, sometimes they don't have the ability to pay. Sometimes they won't have the ability to pay. And that happens. So we really buy notes that are secured. And that's the difference. So in the real estate realm, you've got the note where somebody promises to pay back and to get all the terms are outlined. But on the other side, you're getting with that an attached document, if you will, that says, if I don't pay you back, then you have the right to foreclose. You have the right to go after the property. So that's really in the note world. We buy notes that are secured. So you've got two documents, the promissory note and what we call the security agreement. And that's all it is. So if you've ever purchased a house, everybody's familiar with probably purchasing a house, but you had a promise to pay it back and you had to give the bank the mortgage. That's something else that has been said wrong for so long. Everybody goes, have to go to the mortgage to get a bank. Now you're getting a loan. To get the loan, promise to pay it back and pledge the property as collateral. Those are the documents you sign, and that's indeed what you have given the bank as security for that loan. So we're in the business of buying loans that have been created by another party. Could have been a bank, could have been a private citizen, could have been a company that buys properties, fixes it up and sells it, anything like that. In fact, throughout my career, I've purchased all kinds of really crazy type of notes as well, not backed by real estate.
Yeah, let's even start and digress a half a bit from there and just say, look, I want to compare it, because still somebody might just be saying right now, some people when you talk to about mortgage notes, and they can't get their head over to the note investor or the lender's side of the fence, because we've always been the borrower. But the easy one I like to give people, Kev, is to say, look, the note is of course the promise to pay, and you're going to write down like the terms of the money borrowed. And people know that even when it comes to like borrowing money to buy a car. Right.
Sure.
And I always say, well, there's this little document that everybody's really familiar with that you have to mess around with at the DMV and such like that. And there's a document that says, if you don't pay your car note, then whoever is the lender on that car note can come and repossess your car. And people watch the car repossession television shows. They come with the, snatch it up. But everybody knows that. Right. And everybody understands that pink slip is sort of the document that pledges that vehicle as collateral until the money's paid back, right? And once the money's paid, the car lender will, sign over the pink slip.
Sign the title over, absolutely.
So it's a little different. It's not the same, but the correlation says that when you borrow money to buy a physical piece of real estate, you fill out the promissory note with the lender or the bank that you borrowed the money from, spelling out the terms of the monies borrowed. But there's another accompanying document that goes alongside that promissory note that's called a mortgage document. And yes, the bank doesn't give you a mortgage document. You as the borrower literally give the bank a mortgage document, sort of like giving the bank your car's pink slip, sort of. Okay. But what it is that, guys, the mortgage document you're pledging your home as collateral based on the terms of that note being met or not met. So if you don't meet the terms of the note on the money you've borrowed, what can they do to you?
Right. Exactly.
They can take your house, right? Just like they
correct.
Can take
Sure. Yeah. Sure. And that's really what we buy. So those instruments carry with them value. You're essentially buying if it's a performing note. Now, performing very simply is somebody is actively making on-time payments, or if they're making some late payments, they're catching up, they're within the month, that sort of thing. If you're buying a debt instrument like that, you just step into where the other person left off. So if I came in and bought a note, and I'll just, again, we're kind of simplifying this, but on purpose, if a listener out there borrowed money from a bank, I can go to that bank and buy that loan. So now the payments come to me instead of the bank, right? I paid the bank cash, and now I've got this promissory instrument where I'm receiving this cash flow. And I also had them assign over the security position. So it's just transferring from one bank to another. In fact, for those of you who have ever gotten a loan before, what typically happens in the first sometimes month, sometimes the first 3 months, is all of a sudden they say, hey, you no longer pay Wells Fargo, you're now with Bank of America, or what have you. And all of a sudden your loan got transferred. You didn't give permission. They don't require your permission to do that, by the way. So notes are traded traditionally through banks, but we also come in and buy those banks, or buy the notes from the banks. My apologies.
Yes. And so most homeowners, like you said, that have borrowed money from a bank to buy their home have felt it on the borrower's end, where, like you said, they just get some sort of letter in the mail that says, hey, by the way, Wells Fargo is no longer your lender on your home anymore. It's now
Mhm,
Chase Bank. So
mhm.
now go ahead and keep sending your mortgage payments in every month, folks, but start sending them over to us and not Wells Fargo, right?
Right.
And they get this letter, and all of a sudden, so it's kind of strange that most homeowners in the past who have gotten that letter have no idea that their mortgage note, their promissory note, was sold or traded from one bank to another. And what we're saying, Kevin, is that's what we're able to do now as individual investors in the secondary market. Is we as individuals are able to play the game that these large banks and funding institutions have been playing for years.
Correct. And historically, I don't know how far you want to go back, and I know we're coming up on a break here, but historically, if you go back and research this, you'll find that the United States was not historically a a country where we had owners. Most people rented because banks wouldn't do loans. And if bank did a loan, you had to put 50% down. They might give you 5 years. It wasn't until really after World War II when the government came in and said, we've got to make it easier for people to buy houses. And they set up this whole system, where there's a secondary buyer for bank notes, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So they have all these other systems in place that made all of a sudden it affordable where people could buy homes. And then, of course, we had traditionally bank originated loans, but a lot of people sold property on a promissory note themselves. And, that's a big part of this industry as well. So we don't just buy notes from banks. In fact, buying directly from a bank can be very difficult. So there's another way to do that. Maybe we can talk about that later. Also, seller finance notes are becoming very, very popular once again. So there's a constant inventory. I know that's a subject we'll merge towards also about inventory levels and who can get started and how to get started in this and how much money do you need.
Well, Kevin, it's just, I wish we had, 15 hours to have you on this radio show, honestly, but we will have to take our first commercial break here in just a second. Before we do, Kev, if somebody's not able to come back for the next segment or has to get off listening to this radio show, how can somebody get a hold of Kevin Shortle if they want to learn more about this note investing from you?
Yeah, the best way is probably to send me an email or visit my website, and you can get the information there. There's a couple of different ones. One is just simply my name, and it's kevinshortle.com, but I'll spell that out for you, KEVINSHORTLE.com. And they can email me. A lot of times I'll set up a schedule with somebody and, they can pick an appointment. Let's just talk for 30 minutes and see if this is the right investment for them and how I might be able to help them do that.
And instead of that, how about they just stay on the radio show? Because we're going to take our first commercial break, folks. We'll be back here in just a few quick minutes. Don't go anywhere. We have more of the trainer's trainer here coming up, Kevin Shortle.